under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we begin any further, could you take a moment and check your cell phone to ensure that it's in the off and or buzz position? Are we okay, Diane? We're all called in?
Director Evans?
Here.
Director Ferguson?
Here.
Director Martin?
Here.
Director Cole?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. I have no oral communication other than what is on the agenda.
The agenda.
We should adopt that. A motion to,
That's so moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Consent calendar, have no consent calendar. Action items, 2.1, staff presentation. Maybe,
Good afternoon.
hand puppets.
You may recall at the last board meeting, there was an item on there regarding the potential development of a fee deferral program. Mr. McSweeney, along with several representatives of the development community, spoke to the board briefly about some programs that are currently out there. Mr. McSweeney did provide us with a hard copy of the information, plus he also did provide some slides that he showed to the board. He did indicate to me that he has it on a PowerPoint today if we do need to see it again or if the board has any questions, so we can provide that to you. The direction I had, which was basically to go back, look at what was provided, come back to the board, give an update with respect to the existing policy of the district, so that the board could discuss this to make a determination whether or not they wanted to consider modifying policy, leaving policy as it is, or something in between. So what I've got today is just probably about 10 or 15 slides that addresses existing policy. It goes back and looks at some of the information provided by the BIA, and then just brings a few other items to the board just so that they're aware of potential issues if this kind of a policy is considered. Not pro or con, just topics that need to be looked at, or make sure they're aware of it. At the end, there's just a few questions that are basically policy decisions. Does the board want to entertain this? If they do, these are just some questions to look at and what they need to think about. The existing policy that we have is Resolution 1343. It was adopted back in 2010, and that was done basically in response to questions and comments that we'd had from the board and from the development community. The previous policy was that whenever a developer came in for approval of a project, before the board would approve the project, whether it be condos, homes, whatever the case may be, prior to approval of the project, all fees had to be paid. That had been a long-standing policy, probably 50 years in the making, basically, since 55. That was also based upon past, I don't say legislation, but law of the Subdivision Map Act. The MAP Act, it used to require, before you could approve a map, you had to have a commitment of water and sewer capacity. The only way you get a commitment was through payment. That was the policy we had. In 2010, the board did adopt a new policy that had changed that policy. What it allowed for single-family homes, as the developers made smaller and smaller projects, instead of 50 lot maps now, they weren't doing that anymore. They're making 10, 15 unit maps. What the policy said was that when the first building permit is issued for that phase, so if there's 15 lots in that map, when they pull the first building permit, within that phase, they pay all 15 water and sewer fees, because they're probably pulling all the permits. If it is a multi-tenant, apartment complex, mixed use, they have to pay all fees when they pull their first building permit. Namely because it's one building, we don't know what occupancy takes place inside, we don't know what happens, how it happens. So they pay the sewer fees and they pay the water meter. Because the water meter is one master meter serving multiple units. So you can't make partial payments towards the water meter. You pay the meter and you pay the units as you go. We don't determine the phasing. We leave that up to the developer. The developer presents it to us. If it's reasonable, we accept it. One of the last ones you may recall where there used to be a Walmart proposed down off of Rancho Santa Fe and Boulder. There was a Walmart, that went to condos. That was one of the first projects that we actually implemented this process with. What they did was they came in, they broke it up however they felt they would build it, by unit, by meter. We accepted it, so when they get their first building permit, they pay for the whole unit, they pay their water fees, and then we're good to go. That's the current policy in place. From a statutory standpoint, a reference was made last time that the Mitigation Fee Act is what governs the water and sewer capacity fees. The Mitigation Fee Act is what defines condition of development fees. Water and sewer and service for that are not a condition of development. It's something that is provided based upon the need. It's something that we don't, as a body, we do not have the authority to do it. It's not an exaction that can be approved by a city as a condition of development. Might be a minor issue here, but it's just something we want to be clear on. The government code that was in place prior to AB 1600 was already there with respect to water and sewer fees. When this legislature adopted AB 1600, they rolled it into it. So we do comply with it from a notice standpoint and from a nexus standpoint. But the fee for water and sewers for a service provided is not a condition of development. Just keep that in mind as you go through here. One other policy that we currently have is the drought response program. Adopted in 2009 by the district. This is a policy that was adopted by the board based upon a uniform model that the San Diego County Water Authority worked with all the water agencies. This was after the last drought. And what we found was that there were 26 water agencies that had kind of 26 different versions of drought management programs. The Water Authority developed a model policy. We then worked with internally to come up with our model that followed that. What I have before you is drought response level 3. The key part is what's italic and underlined. If during phase 3, level 3, if the Water Authority declares that, if there's not a valid building permit and fees are not paid in full, water service will not be provided. So this is just something that's amongst one of our many policies that needs to be taken into consideration if the board chooses to change this. And again, today that's what we're after, just show these are all the various things that are out there that are currently in place that you need to take into consideration and discussion if you decide to move forward.
And I'm sorry, Dennis, Mr. Chairman, are you saying that was adopted by every agency, Section 5?
They might have slight versions of it. Everybody, that's why it was a model policy. Some agencies adopted a 4 level, some adopted only a 3 level. But that provision, I believe, was in everybody's. Whether or not it's in their drought level 3, drought level 4, couldn't tell you. I didn't look at everybody's policy.
So it was a boilerplate and then people made some
Yes.
changes?
Yeah,
Okay.
there were some agencies, OTI, for example, they had different things where we were going through it. They actually changed their percentage of drought response differently. When we did it for level 2, I think level 2, it still leaves a discretion of enforcement on what we'd call water cops, up to the general manager's discretion. If we're complying with it and we don't need to have somebody out writing notices, we don't want to do it if we don't have to. So there's a little flexibility between all of us, but I would say everybody probably put that in there. I didn't put it in this slide here, but in addition, our standard development agreement that we have with all developers, Jeff can probably quote the section of the law, but there's actually a provision in the law that says regardless, if we don't have the water, you don't get it. I mean, it's just one of those conditional things. Even if you paid your fees and you paid your money and you have a building permit, if there's no water, there's nothing to give you. So it was sort of the extreme of it. I don't really felt it needed to be in here. The existing fees are impacted annually. Both the Water Authority, by law, we're required to collect the San Diego County Water Authority's capacity fee. As soon as we sell a meter, we're obligated to collect their fee on their behalf, and then we convey that money to them. So that is something that the Water Authority adjusts their rates on an annual basis, both from an inflationary standpoint, and if they go through a capital study like we did, they're going through their master plan right now. They're also going through the cost of service study for the desal water. That will include a component of capacity fee that will most likely be passed down into the capacity fees as well. So that's an annual review that the Water Authority does. Ordinance number 176 and 175, excuse me, those are also existing policies in place right now. January 1 of every year, those fees are inflated or held the same depending on the ENR index for construction based upon our master plan. So those are 3 fees that on an annual basis are adjusted either by ourselves or by another agency.
Yes.
A question, Dennis, and I think you might have said it right in here. The number, bullet point 1, district obligated to collect SDCWA water capacity fees. We need to collect those from the developer at what point?
When we collect ours.
When we collect our fees?
Yeah.
Okay, whenever that may be.
Whenever that may be, yeah. So if we do it at building permit, we do it before we do it occupancy, whenever that happens, we have to then collect that at the same time. With the Water Authority, because they mandated we do this, because the law says they can, what we do is we actually hold them quarterly basis. Okay, yeah, we hold them on a quarterly basis and then send them to them. So that's how they work with us. Otherwise, we'd be cutting checks left and right. So they've done that to help expedite it. The other 2 are ones that we do on an annual basis come January 1. As far as permitting, we do go to 6 different agencies within our service area. City of Carlsbad, City of Escondido, City of San Marcos, City of Vista, County of San Diego, and Buena Sanitation. Buena Sanitation is the wastewater division of the County of San Diego, fragmented throughout the area. You may recall when you've done the tours at Encina, Vista is the representative of Buena San on the EWA board, and they act on their behalf. So when Vista votes, it's actually 4 votes, not 2. So that's the 6th silent member, lack of better terms. So we do have 6 agencies that we work within. If there is consideration by the board, it's just something that process needs to be changed, process needs to be confirmed, internal stuff all has to be changed to accommodate the 6 different agencies. They all look at things differently. Historically, in the past, if we signed a plan, City of Carlsbad assumed everything's done, collected, they'll never talk to us again. It's off and running. County of San Diego, we give a will serve letter. When that will serve letter is done and given to the county, they assume you've collected your money, they're off and running. So there's just some things that would have to be looked at and thought as we go through it. We went through the BIA survey matrix. We obviously didn't call 132 agencies in the last 3 weeks to see what they do. But we did just take a look at it, just to basically give you an idea of what it was. 132 agencies. Out of that 132, 79 are cities, 5 of which had water and sewer. 34 are school districts, 8 are counties, 1 is a sanitation district. 6 others, conservation, APCD, and then there were 5 special districts that were water and sewer. Of those 30 programs, just based upon what we had at face value, 30 of those programs have already expired prior to the date of the matrix. 15 expired since the date of the matrix. 55 of them reduced fees, predominantly school districts, again based upon face value of what we had. We didn't call and see what they actually did. The status of the balance is undetermined, ongoing. So quite a few changes. What we did get was a lot of these actions were taken basically in response to the economy. No doubt about it. What we did is we did contact some of the deferral programs.
Yes.
Do you know the breakdown of the ones who did expire or didn't follow through as far as were they, you've got here that the reduced fees are mostly with the school district. I'm just curious of the other ones that expired prior, et cetera. Were they the ones like the 5 with the water and/or sewer?
I don't believe
We
they
didn't
were.
do it.
We made contact with them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was not the 5 with water and/or sewer?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Again, face value, we couldn't take the whole survey and try to get back into it. That would have been a pretty labor-intensive
No,
process.
understand.
One of the items that was provided, was an example, was a lien agreement. And that was one that was actually done by City of Santee, so we did make contact with them. City Council has chosen not to pursue that program anymore. As of July 1, 2013, it expires. As far as the fee deferral. The fee deferral program, when it was in place, did not include water and sewer capacity fees at the City of Santee.
Yes.
Did you happen to see, as you did speak with them one-on-one, did you happen to find out why they're no longer doing it?
Okay?
I didn't
And this,
have a question.
and this is the City of Santee?
Actually, I was at the council meeting when they approved
I was-
an extension of their deferral program.
we're gonna have some public
Yeah.
input here.
Oh, I thought you looked at me, sorry.
No.
No, I'm sorry, Ken.
Ken's
Go
behind.
ahead. City of Santee, they did, I don't know if they did or they didn't, but they deferred fees, did not include water and sewer, but they've stopped doing that. It didn't work for them, they got burnt. What happened?
The person I talked to said the council decided on, that there wasn't needed to continue the deferral process.
Wasn't productive, wasn't doing anything, no reason to have it there? Or did it cost the city money?
There just wasn't anybody participating. They had a handful since the 3 years they did it.
Whether or not they've extended it, all I can go by is the conversation we had with staff. So, if they extended it, they extended it. City of San Diego, part of the presentation and the information was two issues with the City of San Diego. One was the developer impact fees, or DIF, and the second was the facility benefit assessments, FBAs. Again, Mr. Gertis made contact with staff. All fees, water and sewer, are to be paid prior to issuance of a building permit. However, if you enter into a deferral agreement on the developer impact fees, it includes what they are there, parks fees, drainage fees, and same as a lot of the other cities, did not include water and sewer capacity fees. They had to enter into an agreement to do it. The facility benefit assessments, same difference. They were due unless they entered into a deferral agreement. And those are more of assessments. Those are levied against the property. Those are fees that they charge for whatever the case may be for service, whether it's something has already been built or public library, fire, et cetera. Again, from the information we got from talking to staff, did not include water and sewer capacity fees. Some of the other, City of Chula Vista, fee deferral program started in 2010, it's in an ordinance. It's been extended every year and currently expires on December 31st. Staff has indicated they anticipate another one-year extension, just from talking to them. They call them sewer participation fees or capacity fee. They do in fact include those in the service. City of Chula Vista does provide that sewer service. City of Encinitas, there was a reference to deferral. The best we could find by going through their policies and everything else is that's in a existing policy and program that's been in place at the City of Encinitas. We couldn't find words or anything as far as deferral, delay, or anything else. I think their policy has probably been in their policy forever, best we can tell. City of Oceanside, I spoke to them. Water and sewer buy-in are due a building permit. Their water and sewer is not considered part of their impact fees, and there is no deferral program for those fees. Coachella Valley and Eastern were both listed as deferral of sewer fees. Making contact with them, they did not defer fees. They deferred or put off raising sewer fees. So that's what they deferred from the best information we can get. So it wasn't a deferral program. They deferred the increases to the fees. City of San Diego, we've already spoken about. We just made contact with a few agencies within our boundaries, just to make sure, because again, like I said, we go into 6 different agencies, and we just wanted to see what they do. Let's see, County of San Diego, all fees, including Buena. And again, Buena seems where, but it depends on where they're at and whether or not they collected a building permit or not. Bless you. Fees are due prior to issuance of a building permit unless the deferral program is in place. The program is being considered to extend it for, is being extended for 2 more years. Fees are then paid prior to scheduling the final inspection. I believe the County of San Diego for Buena, that would be a sewer fee where they do have it. Keep in mind the County of Buena San are the pockets that kind of fit in between all the other areas. City of Carlsbad, they went through this just recently. They did actually a very detailed staff report that was provided by the City of Carlsbad staff. We did provide get quite a bit of information out of that. They did, in fact, start it. It expires 2015, includes all fees of their local facility management. They do include sewer. Again, City of Carlsbad is a sewering agency, so they have control over the permits, the sewer, and the process that goes with it. Did not include the water capacity fees, which are governed by the Carlsbad Water District in that program. City of Vista, again, City of Vista, you're aware we're partnered with them at Encina. They collect their fees at final inspection, including sewer. Again, they are a sewering city. They have control over that process. Buena San, that is the county. So within the area that the Buena, this is according to City of Vista staff, that's the Buena sanitation area, they require the payment of the fee at the building permit, not at inspection. City of San Marcos, they do not provide water or wastewater service, but currently their fees are all collected at issuance of building permit. City of Escondido, they are a sewering agency and water. They do collect at the will serve letter. This is where when we do give a will serve, that's when it has to be paid, because they assume the commitment's made.
Director Ferguson?
Yes, I have a question for clarification. In one instance, we're saying final inspection. In another instance, you're saying issuance of building permits. What is on the table here?
What has been brought forward, and I'll get to at the very end, has been a request by the BIA and the development community for the district to consider deferring collection of water and wastewater impact capacity fees. Instead of
Until
a
when?
building permit, which is what we currently do,
Okay,
to occupancy or final inspection.
okay, that answered my question.
The difference between final inspection and occupancy, I don't know if that means a week, 2 weeks, 5 days, or I'm not really sure on that process right there. We don't go through that. Part of the statement, again, was the purpose here is to save.
Excuse me, Dennis.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Do any of these agencies have deferral of fees prior to occupancy?
That's the only ones that I've mentioned here. A lot of the cities do deferral of what they call impact fees or
But they don't
everything
have,
else.
well,
the
let's stick with
city of-
W&S.
The city of Carlsbad has allowed the sewer to be deferred.
Until occupancy?
Occupancy.
Okay.
Excuse me, final inspection. Final inspection.
Well, what's the difference?
One is a letter, the other is city inspector. Final inspection is done by the city. Final occupancy, the owner has to request a letter from the agency or the municipality, certificate of occupancy. The city attorney or the staff types it up and then gives you the letter that you have now a certificate of occupancy for the project.
I don't know if
It's a week.
I don't know if
week
I think
period
it's probably a
difference.
week or two. In other words,
Are we discussing then the owner requesting?
no. The
You
developer.
just said owner.
The owner or the contractor or the entity that is doing the construction.
Developer.
The developer.
Developer. It would
They
be
are the one that
developer.
requests to the municipality, they want a certificate of occupancy.
It's a processing internally, Betty. I don't know the intricacies of the details of it, because I figured that would come out the conversation if the board wanted even.
5 to 10 days max.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
when does the privately held utility, SDG&E, allow to turn on electricity? What do they go by?
final inspection.
Final inspection?
After final inspection.
Well, after, yeah, exactly. It has to, final inspection is the
Would you
approval.
have this guy identify himself or stop speaking out?
Wait till public comment, please. The approval of final inspection, not just final inspection, because you could fail.
So the city's finally expected to pass it?
Yes.
And that's what SDG&E will be. And how is SDG&E, how are they notified that this has happened?
City notifies them.
City contacts SDG&E?
Yes. Yes.
Well, then the city contact the water district?
Well, that's an area of discussion we can get into.
That would be part of, Director Ferguson, as I indicated, we have 6 different agencies we work with. We would just have to make sure we have 6 different protocols. That's really what it comes down to, the processing. Yeah, we didn't bother getting into the nuts and bolts that we do this here or there. If that's something, if it has to happen, staff can work that out. We'll find a way to do that. So, I didn't get into any of the details on that here.
Yes.
I think the question would be for you, Dennis. So on this statement where it says prior to final inspection, that is different than final inspection, if I
Occupancy.
heard you right. No, I know it's different than occupancy. One says prior to final inspection, then in the conversation I heard final inspection, which is what the SDG&E requires, is it's actually been stamped approved. Past the final inspection?
I think these, I don't want to use the word semantics, but I think when we hear and we're making all these conversations, I think that's what a lot of it is, Director Evans. It's sort of like, well, no, when we final it.
Okay.
Well, what does final mean?
Yeah.
So again, I think that's a nuance that if this moves forward, that's nothing that would
Not critical to the.
Not critical to discussion.
The debate.
If we needed to do it, we would work out the arrangements with each agency to do it.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, and I would assume it's not a final if it doesn't pass, because it's gonna be another one.
Most likely, there's probably a punch list process they
Final
go
means
through.
approved.
Yeah, probably. And again, like I said, some of these, they say at final, some they say prior to occupancy. There's several water districts that actually, they set their meters. We have chosen never to be in that business. I think OTI does, the city, I know BID does. So they won't even set the meter or allow a meter to go on the ground. They physically do it as the district. We've chosen to never do that. We've always allowed the developer to do it and let them do it. We didn't want to staff up and have a group of people that all they do is put meters in and then worry about stocking meters. And so we've chosen to never get into that part of it. Let's let the developer do it. Part of it was the cost. There were some numbers thrown out as far as the savings and how this could go. So, we just took it real quick. These are very simple calculations. There were numbers thrown out at 12 to 15% interest. We did contact quite a few people in the industry just to see what they say. Some local, some that we know. We heard it went from 3.5 to 10, and sometimes they said 12. It depends upon what was the term? Creditworthiness of the developer. Creditworthiness of the developer, lack of
Yeah,
other terms.
I'm 15.
But, just for, we just assumed 10% here on the first calculation. The water and sewer fee is about 14 something. You assume they're 15,000, 10% on an annual basis, $1,500. Assume 6 months, because that's what you're normally talking about on the average. The city of Carlsbad, when they did the report, they showed that some developments could take 12 months, some could take 3 months. We just assumed 6 months in between there. If it's 4 months, great. If it's 9 months, great. We're just showing this for representative purposes. You're looking at $750 savings per unit. If the interest is lower, obviously the number gets cut in half. If the interest is higher, it costs a little bit more. So this is just something to give you a magnitude. Obviously, if you have 100 units, your potential would be 1,500 times 100. So it's a big number, but you still break it down to the unit. That's the cost per unit. That's the number we're talking about. We took the two references that were provided by the lien agreements. One was City of San Diego, the facility benefit assessment, RD Homes, 91 units, $675,000. We assumed a 10% interest rate, $67,500. They paid them in 4 months. It resulted basically in a savings of $247 per unit was the savings. City of San Diego, City of Santee, developer impact fee, McMillan Homes, 46 units, $20,000. 7 months, they paid them $25 a unit. Simple interest, simple math. We didn't get into all the nuts and bolts that could go into it. But you can see it's a large variation between what the savings and what the benefit or pros and cons are. Part of what we also look at that's very important is district, as it is to any agency that does borrow, because it's been stated we'd be borrowing money. We don't disagree with you, we'll be borrowing money. We just basically took a look at, going through what the rating agencies look at. Is this a potential to the district as far as a negative from a rating agency? I would say yeah. It's something that they would look at. Borrowing is inevitable, we know that. We've never said that we don't have to borrow. But right now, you saw the presentation that we got when we just recently reaffirmed a AA+. The average that we borrow is, the amount that we borrowed is average, but when they factor in MET and the Water Authority, it is higher than normal. So this is just something the board needs to think about if they choose to move forward with this. Question of the benefit as far as where it goes. As you're aware, right now, we're about $4.3 million in the negative on the wastewater, on the capacity, the separate funds for the water capacity, water and sewer capacity. Right now, the debt is being made up through ratepayers through transfers of the regular service that we bring in, because we don't have the capacity fees in there right now. So the reserves are not being transferred to cover capital growth, they're helping cover debt. So any fee deferral of capacity money is just more money that's not going into the capacity fee, which is reducing reserves, et cetera. The reserve policy states that replacements are maintained for the payment of related debt service. acquisition and draws for unusual circumstances for drought management. We're not putting money into those reserves because we're using them to help pay off the capacity, so it's just again. So essentially, if you do that for a long period, you are in fact deferring payment at the rate, at the impact to the ratepayer. Payment, we did go through. There were some various options thrown out. The set-aside letter, lien agreement was provided. We talked about these. We just looked at these as a general rule of thumb. We didn't get into any detail on this. Performance bond / certificate of developer deposit. It can be purchased by the developer. It then is provided to us. This is something we've done throughout the years. This is nothing new to us. Normally, this has been held in two circumstances. One, where the developer does not have the bonding capacity, but he has the cash, or they don't want to provide the bond. They would rather hold on to their money. They will take a CD for the bonds, and they will provide them to us. So we've done that. The other thing we've used bonds or that type of a thing for is whenever a developer doesn't get his funding until a map records, we allow the money and all the capacity fees to go into an escrow account. Second, the map records, it funds, we get paid. So that's something we've done over the years. That's nothing unusual. We've done that. Set-aside letter is very similar to a letter of credit. I think it costs less than the bond. Like I said, generally, we just made some quick contacts to see what these are. Instrument of credit, there's actually no funds deposited or secured. It's just an instrument of credit that says they have credit. A letter of credit, that is an expensive item. It is acceptable. The risk to the district is creditworthiness of the bank where the money's held. That's what it comes down to. Then the lien agreement it's minimal cost to the developer because there's no actual funds deposited or transferred. They put a lien against the property, and the lien's not cleared until we're paid. So there's no money set aside. There's nothing actually established and set aside on that. It's just an agreement. There might be other nuances. They're called kind of names. We call it set aside, do this, do that, but they're basically all the same types of instruments. When it comes down to it, part of the direction I had was to come back to the board. We have a policy. What's the policy? Should we have a policy? Usually before we try to write a policy or draft one, it's kind of rough to write one without really knowing what the intent of the board is. So I didn't attempt, obviously, to write a policy. What we have is the existing fee to payment program, which we have up front. So if this is something that the board entertains and wants to do, we would most likely take that ordinance resolution and just modify that to accommodate whatever the consideration by the board may be. But really, the policy questions that come into this is, what's the goal of the policy in the district? What's the purpose of this? Is there a benefit to the district, to the ratepayers? And is the deferral and the potential risk justified? Why are we doing it? What's the benefit? What's the purpose behind it? That's all I have, so I can leave these questions up or leave it here if that's what you board would prefer.
Very good. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a little discussion amongst ourselves. We're going to open it to the public. I have a speaker slip. Anyone else that would like to speak, please get a slip in. We're going to close that public section, then bring it back to the board members for a continual discussion and direction to staff as to what to do or not to do. And with that, then, questions among the board at the moment?
Yeah.
Yes?
Chairman, I do. The potential risk, has any one of the people you contacted say that ratepayers somehow were at risk because they changed their policy? And that's why they're changing it back?
I didn't Ken made a lot of the comments. We're talking to staff going through this, not policymakers. The general feeling that we got from the little bit I was involved in with all my conversations with Ken was a lot of the agencies did consider the deferral because of the economy. And as I pointed here, I don't have some silver bullet here to point at the district and say, oh God, don't do this. If you do this, the Titanic's gonna go down. No. Is there risk? Of course. The risk is you don't get the money, the bank's insolvent, the developer goes away. Do we have any risk to the district? Yeah. Is it minor? Probably. But is there a benefit or value to the district or to the ratepayer? And what's the purpose? And I guess that goes back to my question here, the policy questions for the board. What? Why? I mean, like I said, I couldn't bring something back to you to consider. I'm not sure what it is I would be drafting into a policy to identify the benefit or the safeguards, lack of better terms. Is there a risk? Yeah, it's a minor risk. Like I said, I can't stand here and tell you there's some, oh God, don't do this. If you do it, we're gonna, sink. Is there benefit to the district that outweighs the risk? I don't think so. I think it's very minor either way. But if you're gonna do something, I would assume the board would want to do it based upon the benefit to the agency. Hence the questions here.
Do you see a future benefit to the agency, the ratepayers that aren't here yet today?
No.
They'll be here in the future.
Speak up, please. I'm sorry, I can hardly hear you.
I'm not known for having a soft voice. That's a good thing.
Director Martin's
Well,
question
you got
was,
your-
do we see
I
a
don't even
future,
know.
do we see a future benefit to the ratepayer of the district? I would say no. To go back again, development comes in, capacity fees are paid to build capacity. A statement was made that we don't need to build these facilities right now, we can't build them in the next 6 months, we already have capacity. Absolutely. That's because 10 years ago, we collected the money we needed, we built the facilities, and we have the service available. If it's a 3 or 6 month delay, gonna throw that whole thing off? No. I mean, I can't honestly stand here and tell you that it's gonna completely destroy this agency by any means. But if we're doing it, there is risk inherent to it. You have the risk of, and I'm sure everybody can stand up here, you already heard some of it last time, of somebody wanting to move in on Christmas Eve, we haven't collected the money. Okay, well, where do we get the money? The board does not want to be put into a situation of having to deal with those issues. It really comes down to the third bullet item there, what is the policy benefit? That's really it. Before we can write something and develop a policy, you've got to either define a benefit or a purpose.
Yeah.
I got another question for you. In my crystal ball of the future, which has been different colors many times, we have absolutely no land use authority whatsoever. But my crystal ball in the future tells me we're gonna see more Palomar Station type complexes on land use rather than single-family homes. Only because that seems to be the direction the world is going in. But that's my crystal ball, I could be wrong. Can we use Palomar Station, and I don't have the numbers for it, so maybe you can help me with that. Are they building in 3 phases? Is that a 3-phase?
I don't know how they did it, but if you recall, they, as a business choice, decided to come in and pay all the fees up front.
Sure, I'm sure it was a financial.
It was a
benefit,
financial
too.
reason on their part.
But I'm only using that because I drive past them every day.
2 phases.
2 phases, okay.
Yeah.
And as a financial choice, they chose to pay all their fees because of financial. Well, in the future, that may not be the case. We may not be offering lollipops to developers that pay us up front. We may be, but who knows?
Yeah. The board's never included a provision when we've modified fees that you couldn't pay them up front. Yeah.
Right, but has there always been a carrot? I mean,
The carrot is if they
receive a
pay-
financial benefit for
Yeah,
doing that.
absolutely,
So how
absolutely.
does that benefit our ratepayers when we do that?
It doesn't.
It would adversely affect them. We're collecting.
We're collecting less
fees
than we should.
Than we normally would have, and the ratepayer that we already have is paying that,
Now, the ratepayer pays for replacement.
right?
Yeah. Ratepayer, again, so capacity fees are based upon developing future capacity.
Capacity.
So with the law states, is it 120 days? 90 days?
120.
120 days. What the law is, basically the intent of the law is when you adopt as a agency, as a board, when you adopt a new fee, what they're trying, the intent of the law was to protect the person in process. So that you weren't working for 3 years towards a project, you had 2 million in fees, but the board adopted a new rate and they go into effect tomorrow. So that was why that's there, Director Martin. Does that give them some benefit that they save money based upon where we're headed? Absolutely. Does that cost then get passed to the ratepayer? No, it's just gonna get rolled into the next fee study, and it's just gonna come in at a different time.
To all the ratepayers,
To the capacity, no capacity.
to the capacity.
Capacity fees are separate, completely and distinct. When you get the board packet every month, you'll see the investments that we have. There's 4
But the
funds.
capacity fees that we did not, or we discounted
Mhm.
to Palomar Station, we discounted the capacity fees
No,
in order to get them paid
No.
up front.
no, absolutely not.
What was the benefit for them paying up front?
What they had was they're in process. So we already gave them all their fees. Okay, so what they did was, okay, the sewer fee went down. So they, I don't think, they actually, I don't know if they paid it at the same time or not. Sewer fee went down. Remember, we actually reduced our sewer capacity fee when we adopted them last time. Water fee went up. So let's pretend they both went up. They're entitled, unless there's a policy that the board has, but I think it's going to go contrary to law, is that if they come in and buy them within that 120 days, they still pay the full price of what's currently in place. They just don't have to pay the increase.
Right.
We didn't discount anything. We've never discounted capacity fees.
They're just not paying the increase that potentially would have been there when they came.
Right, so that nexus of what we didn't collect, when we do the next fee study, and we go through the next master plan, we know we're missing $2.5 million, $1,000, whatever. It just goes right back in the kitty. It gets divided by the new number of capacity fees, and we still get the money.
Yes, Director Evans?
I just want to clarify this in my head. If we were to consider deferring the fees to final inspection, the builder, developer, or individual does not have to choose that. That is an option that we would offer and they would sign a deferral agreement. Is that true? It's not everybody has to do it. It's an option.
Yes.
Okay, so if I've understood when we were talking about these other organizations, the few who have done it, people have to form a deferral agreement. So one option in front of a builder, if they come in, is they could do as we have normally done, and they could pay at the time of, they drew building permits if they wanted to, or they could do it at final inspection.
Right?
Or they could ask for a deferral agreement. No.
No, right now, they pay them at building permit, period.
Okay, so right now, they come forward and so they would come in and they could pay at the time of the building permit or sign a deferral agreement? Is
If
that
the-
what we're talking about?
If the board chooses to go down that way.
If we chose to go that way. Okay, so the advantage to a builder to sign the deferral agreement would be that they don't have to collect this money up front and don't have to pay the interest on it. And hopefully it will lower the costs for the home buyer, because the home buyer is going to pay whatever it was anyway. And I don't think they're going to be handing back rebates, but I think on a long scale, the less they pay sooner or later. I mean, it's going to go with cost of supply and demand, we know that. But the intent is we're not asking, does this apply to school districts too? Do they have an option to defer and then they wouldn't? A school district isn't the same as a developer?
The San Marcos School District does not currently allow that.
Oh, that's, okay, I'm doing a generic question that I see.
I-
We
I
don't
would- I would
just deal
assume-
with San Marcos.
I would
School
assume any
District.
agency probably has that legislative authority to do what they want, how they
Okay.
collect their fees.
Okay.
I'm
So
gonna guess
a school
everybody has that
district
right.
or a cemetery district or whatever,
The
okay.
the presentation.
Well, I've laid it, so what I'm saying is they come in and they have the option of saving money by a deferral agreement, which puts us at a little bit of risk, but hopefully we resolve that with something fairly strong, and those payment options. I need those explained better. Or that developer could choose to, but he runs the risk, or she runs the risk of our rates going up, and they would be, so if they were building and the rates went up, they have to accommodate the raise in the fees, is that true? The
Yes.
fees, not rates, is
Yes.
that true? So the gamble for them is the fees could go up.
But when you consider the fact that anytime a fee goes up, they've got 120 days to pay it anyway.
Well, all I'm trying to say is that the developer can then can choose to pay it up front to avoid a rising fee.
Yes.
If you have the deferral agreement, do they also have that option?
Yeah, because even right now with the development agreement that we've ever had, if we enter into a long-term development agreement, San Alejo, Paloma, an example, we entered into master development agreements with them. Yeah, they didn't have to pay any money, but it established all the terms and conditions of their project. But it also says that you pay the fees that are in effect when you do it. There would be really no reason for the district, that would be risk, I think that would not be worth assuming, is if you enter into an agreement and give them a fee deferral agreement, hell, I'd do that too.
No, I
But I
understand.
would say even with the fee deferral agreement, they're gonna pay the fee that's in effect and in place when
At
they
the
finally pay
time
the
they
fees.
pay.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, I'm trying to put myself on the side of the developer here, and I'm thinking, unless I was really desperate for money, most of the time, I don't see an advantage of a deferral agreement anyway.
Speaking to,
So I feel that I'd really like to know of the ones who have it, how many have actually had a developer use it and have they failed to meet their commitment? Because I'm almost feeling as though this is an option that's viable to help the community if it can keep our prices down. But if the economy is good, a developer wouldn't really be very smart to go for it. So,
the few developers that I've spoken to that I've known for years, a couple of them, when I talked to them, their preference was pay the fee. They know they've got certainty. They know they've got commitment. They would prefer to do that versus that little bit that they might save.
I guess I'm looking for reassurance that if we were to consider this, it doesn't mean every single developer is going to step forward and suddenly want to do it.
Highly
So the
unlikely.
risk is there, but it may indeed be a minor risk.
Yes, that's what I've indicated. You know, there is risk.
Both in
Both
that they
ways.
won't pay and how many would actually participate.
I'd say the bigger risk of the whole issue would be the mechanism, the bank ensuring the money is there and it can't go away. We've all been through the financial crisis where the banks and everybody went belly up and so did the money. That's the risk. That is probably extreme, but again, we're just talking potential risk. And as I indicated to Director Martin, there's no silver bullet here. It says this is right or wrong. This is, do you want to assume any risk? And what's the purpose of the district assuming risk for the ratepayers?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
The potential real risk to the developer is, should this go into effect and this drought continue and we do hit this level, all bets are off to them.
Period.
And so that is a real risk that, could you give me a little bit of an understanding, a time frame? You know, obviously, this afternoon, we're not gonna get a call, we're going to level 3.
Now, if you want to go back in time, and this is why I brought that up, the last drought, we were going to level 3. That was
2009?
2009? 2009. We were going to level 3. We got the rain, they didn't have to go to it. But when you want to go back to the March Miracle, I believe when Water Authority General Manager Stapleton and the Chair, Tom Warnham, came up, I think they walked you through kind of the history of the Water Authority. If they didn't do it, we can get the presentation from the Water Authority. Metropolitan only had I think it was a 1 or 2 step drought policy back in 91, 92, when they went into it. 87% normal demand, no big deal. Ag's gonna get cut 15%. So it's like, 75% overall. That literally, when they got to the 3rd level, they had to start adopting new policies. They were having special board meetings every other day. They went from everything's rosy to literally a week and a half later, 75% curtailment in San Diego. So it can happen,
And that could be the timeframe.
absolutely.
And
They've since,
unless I got my finger on the pulse, I'm thinking, as a developer.
they've since built Diamond Lake, so they've got local storage.
Yeah.
They've since done a lot of other stuff.
Mhm.
91 was an extreme, I'll give you
Yeah.
that. They learned from it, but literally, to answer your question, they were having board meetings every other day, going to new levels within a matter of days. Have we built a lot of stuff to mitigate that? Absolutely. The Water Authority's built the emergency storage program, we've probably got water. So again, these are extremes.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay, thank you,
Director
Mr.
Ferguson?
Chairman. On page 7, the payment vehicle risk, what about a performance bond certificate of deposit purchased by the developer, held by the district, and the developer receives the interest? Because that's what they're yapping about, is the fact that they can get, save on interest if they can get a deferment.
I think that's a double-edged sword for the poor developer. They've got to borrow the funding unless they have the funding. We spoke to one company here that does development, they're self-funded because they're part of a big bank. They have their own funding. But if a developer's got to borrow from his construction loan at 3%, 5, 10, 12, whatever it is, and then put that money in a CD, they're going to get 1 or 2% maybe back.
Right.
So I think that's the risk to the developer there. Why would they want to do that when they're losing a 10% negative, that'd be 10% loss.
Yes.
Okay, on that,
Unless they have the cash, Director Ferguson, then they would just put the cash in there, and then they would get their interest.
okay, then on that same page, the last bullet on current capacity fee balances, request for deferral of payment is essentially asking ratepayer to subsidize development even further. Now, previously, you told Director Evans or Director Martin that there wasn't risk to the ratepayer.
No, that's right now because of the fact that we are in a negative balance in capacity fees right now. So right now, when we have to make payments on the debt, we're taking that out of reserves to help make the debt payment. Reserves are funded by current ratepayer. The question Director Martin asked is what's the impact to the future ratepayer? The ratepayer is paying discounted capacity fees now because that money gets rolled back in. But right now, because there is a deficit in there, we are using reserves, which are paid through rates, to do it. So the ratepayer is in fact funding the deficit right now. Two different issues.
Yes, Director Paul, unless you're,
Yeah, you-
go ahead. No,
Okay, to go back to
continue.
Director Martin's, what his question was, so if we don't collect because we discounted something, but that was a misunderstanding, we didn't discount it, they just paid it before the rate went up. So his question was, so the nexus between the new rate and the old rate, the ratepayer has to pay it? No, that nexus between the two, we just go back into the next rate study and we would still collect it for capacity fees. Right now, we're actually using reserves to help make our payments. So it is in fact coming through existing water rates.
Well, wouldn't it eventually become a risk to the ratepayer?
Could.
Because what if the bank failed, and what if the developer went belly up, and what if these people were trying to move in and they don't have permission for occupancy, and they come stand here crying Christmas Eve about
Then you're gonna have
us
some,
doing
then
it?
you're gonna have some rate transfer,
I
some
mean,
risk transferred to the
I
district.
want you all to know, I've been in that circumstance. Dennis, I wish you would tell them a little history about the poor people who came here crying.
No, there have been circumstances where it's happened where the developer didn't pay the fees. We did not turn the meters on. I mean, it has happened. The extreme of how these things slip through, you may all recall San Marcos Tract 291, Bellspring. Bob, I forget Bob's last name, that developed that. The 4 models that were right off Bellspring Circle when you first go in. Beautiful homes, beautiful project. Those somehow were sold and transferred to the Department of Real Estate. No fees were paid. The facilities weren't even built. They were still the models. We actually, small world, my dental hygienist, her husband, worked for the guy who bought them. So I got a phone call from him out of the blue. Hey, Dennis, what's going on? Why are you calling me? Well, that's why I got the phone call. They had managed to actually transfer the sale of those 4 lots while they were still models. Did not have occupancy. They didn't have anything. It happens. Again, that's the extreme, but it does happen.
Director Paul, you had a question?
Director Ferguson already asked, which was how the risk is transferred.
Okay. That same page 7, Dennis, the set-aside letter in my discussions with financial people, that in fact is, although it's similar to a letter of credit, it in fact is monies that are established within a loan that only, in this case, Vallecitos can access, regardless of what happens to the developer.
And again, I think the risk here, I think we can work, if the board chooses to do this, these were just words that were thrown out at the
Right.
presentation, so that's all this is.
But-
I think from a statutory, whatever we can accept as a board, I think we can probably work through. The biggest risk is what we want to make sure of, is that money is in a fund sitting somewhere.
Right.
If that's what the board wants to do, we just have to know that that money is there regardless of the developer, regardless of the map, regardless of the bank.
Yes.
We need to have access to that money.
Yes.
Could we have a comment from our attorney on that?
Well, we would have to look at the specific forms and see that we're, adequately protected, because we can't have something that we can't simply, that isn't a fund that, as Dennis has said, that is dedicated to us to be able to access at the time, whatever time that is that these fees are due. We gotta be able to have the ability to get those funds, not have any interference or obstacles in doing that. So that that when we get that building permit, or rather the occupancy approval, that at that moment, we are able to access those funds, whether it's in an escrow, letter of credit, instrument of credit, whatever form it is, we've got to be able to have that ability to do that. And we would have to, the legal people would have to look at those forms and feel comfortable that we would have the ability to actually do that. We do allow letters of credit now. We do allow instruments of credit now. It's just rarely used. As a practical matter, what the developer looks at is, hey, when do I have to pay these fees? And in this case, you know, they're asking for the payment to be later on down the road. But it's very unusual. And as far as performance, or rather payment bonds and things like that, those are instruments that really are more suited to, and liens and things like that, are really more suited to all of the exactions that a city would require. And we're just talking very, you know, basic water and sewer fees, that's it, okay, capacity fees.
Director Martin?
Yeah, two things. I was gonna ask for staff recommendation, but after reading this, it tells you what their recommendation is. But going back to current capacity fees that Director Ferguson brought up, request for, last bullet, request for deferral of payment is essentially asking ratepayers to subsidize development even further. We subsidize development now? I didn't realize ratepayers did that.
They are, because we're having to make payments out of reserves to pay bond debt and coverage for the capital facilities we built.
And those reserves, were they put there to do that?
They're there for, if you go to the fifth bullet, fourth bullet down, that's what it's for. It's for debt service if needed. It's a reserve. It's for debt service if needed. It's for drought management if it's needed. It's for the moon blows up tomorrow and we get hit with a big chunk. It's a reserve that we have money available to us to do something. Right now, we're choosing to use part of it.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, it would be debt service if it was borne by the ratepayer, but our only debt service is in the capacity fund, so it's not meant for transfers to the capacity funds, but that's what's happening right now, because there's such a big deficit. We're still spending out of those capital facility fee funds, but we don't have any money to spend it, so it's coming from the ratepayer-funded reserves.
So we're not charging ratepayers enough now, obviously, if we have to tap into reserves to make payments. Because reserves are meant to be reserves and stay there as a reserve.
They're meant to pay for unanticipated repairs and replacement, and we cycle through reserves, we build them up, we knock them down, we build them up, we knock them down, but that's supposed to be just replacement only. But right now what's happening is, because we're still showing it as a negative and a positive over here in the reserves, but there's no such thing as negative money. It's got to be funded some way,
Right.
so they're funded by those reserves, but that's not the intent, the board intent of those reserves.
And a part of also, you may recall, the board has adopted resolutions that we can reimburse ourselves
Right.
as we move forward with projects. That's part of the intent of that also, is that we know we're spending reserves and other funds.
Yeah.
And then when we actually build the project and we have additional capital come in, we pay it back, and we pay it back into that fund. So it pays it back.
Yeah. If I could elaborate a little bit on Director Martin's question. Tom, what would happen if we started deferring fees to what you said?
It would just defer that, it would just increase that impact right now. Right now it's 4.3 million, so the impact is small, but it's still more negative, not less negative. You know, it can only be worse because we're not getting those fees where they're supposed to be in the capital facility fee funds.
So what you're saying is, although reserves are for what the purpose you say, you have reserves, you use the reserves to fill in where they're needed, then you build those reserves back up, then you fill it in another place. But we wouldn't be able to fill that in if we started deferring fees.
Not to the extent that they're deferred, correct?
Yes or no? You're
Yes.
like an attorney.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
I want to be clear because I'm getting a little bit confused. We have reserves. We have capital improvement projects that we are building and we are taking money, we are borrowing from ourselves to pay those capital improvements. And the 4.3 million in reserves is doing that. Now, if we defer the fees, then we are just not adding to our reserve.
We take more out of it to pay.
Well, but the items that are being built are presently being built by the developer. We're not building any of these for the most part.
Debt service and coverage rates too.
I'm sorry?
It's also debt service.
The fee is part of debt service.
Part of what we're paying is also debt service.
Right,
Yeah.
but debt service not on the infrastructure that developers are building, it's capital improvements that the district is accomplishing.
Correct.
Through the capital facility
Through
fee
the
funds.
Through the capital-
Those are the
right,
burden of
exactly.
capital facility fees.
But
fees.
the capital facilities projects are, for the most part that I have seen, are not sewer and water pipes in developments such as,
Never are.
right.
Never are.
So again, we have the reserves, which is our bank, that we are borrowing from to do our capital improvements. And then when these fees come in, or when the fees come in, it replaces, it's deposits into our reserve bank account.
Yeah, hopefully that negative gets less
Oh, it just
in
gets lifted up.
magnitude. Yeah.
Right. Okay, very good. Other questions from the board at the moment?
Well, I just have two, and I'm not sure if it would be for you or for you, but first, if we have this enormous debt service, what was the improvement that put this excessive debt service in place to begin with? Because now I'm blank, I don't understand that. And secondly, and I don't know if it's related, I understand what Director Ferguson is saying, you know, the reserves are, if we don't have the reserves, we take it from the ratepayers. But deferring the fees does not mean it's going to make the ratepayers pay even further. It means they'll, unless they don't pay them. It seems to me what we're saying is we were gonna get the money at the time they got the building permit. Now we may have to wait 4 months or 6 months, but we're still gonna get the same amount of money minus our 0.5% investment privileges, just 6 months down the road. And if that happens, the ratepayers aren't really being subsidizing anything. Am I correct? As long as we get the fee, we're fine. The problem is, if we don't have what Jeff is saying, if we don't have a way to get that money, then we have definitely put all of us in liability.
It is very minimal unless, like you said, the risk is transferred basically to the ratepayer. That's really what it
If
is.
they don't pay.
Correct.
Okay, but now back first, and I see we have another question down that side, Jim, I don't know if you saw it. Where did the debt service?
Twin Oaks reservoirs, both of those, and the expansion of the treatment plant. About 80, or, you know, most of the treatment plant, 91%, I think, and then most of the Twin Oaks reservoirs was the biggest part of that debt.
So that's the debt service we're paying
In
on.
other words, they haven't been paid for yet.
And if we had no more development, period.
Oh, there's more.
If
We still have.
We had no more, let's just say development stopped
Oh, okay.
today. Who's paying it then? The reserves and the ratepayer for those capacities? Okay, just,
Director
it
Polo?
makes sense to me.
I was just going to make the way I see it is that, that if that money isn't paid up front, we don't have it in the bank. You still have to make the payments on the debt service. So if you're saying it's 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, we're using our own money to pay the debt service. Whereas if we had the money in the bank, we could be using those fees. Would that be correct, Stephen?
Yes, it still has to come from
And
somewhere.
then you still have the risk of whether or not it's going to come to fruition at the end.
Yeah,
So,
and again, as I pointed out, you know, I don't have something to say, here's a risk that you just shouldn't do this. Here's this that you should or shouldn't. To Director Martin's question, if you wanted a recommendation from me, I don't see the benefit to the agency in doing this, even though it's a very minor risk. Again, if normally we've done something as a district where we've taken action one way or the other, there's a pro, there's a con, there's a goal in mind. That's why I asked the first bullet item here is if I'm directed to go back and take and develop a policy, what is the goal and purpose of the policy? And where am I going? So that's why that's the first bullet item there. But again, it's a minor risk here, it's a minor risk there. Is the current ratepayer paying part of the debt because we don't have the money? Yeah. If we defer it, will we have to pay more from them? Is it a risk? Yeah. Again, these are all minor. These are little things here and there. Not trying to say the world will come to an end, but if we're doing something, what is the purpose of the district and what is the goal of policy?
Very good. Yes, Director Martin.
But another way of putting it, and I'm understanding your side of it, another way of putting it, if development were to stop tomorrow, ratepayers' fees would have to go up dramatically to pay the debt service. because we have no other way of paying it.
Well, I don't think the fees would go up dramatically. I think the existing debt policy, the existing rates that you have, because it is funding a replacement fund, what you would do is you would continue funding that replacement fund. You would just never have a surplus of money to have this money that you have set a policy on, limits.
But wouldn't,
We're already funding a.
You lost me there. You lost
Okay,
me.
we're already funding it. When you did your rate increase this year for the sewer, you didn't have to do a sewer rate increase because the current rates are adequate to fund a surplus. Okay, so funding these other things that we already have is adequate to fund a surplus and keep us moving forward. So would I have to raise the rates a monumental amount to cover our debt service? No. Because the current rate that we already charge is adequate to fund a replacement and a surplus.
And I'm really trying to get this. If there's no new development,
Ratepayers would
rates will stay the
be,
same.
ratepayers would be paying
If
the
there
debt.
is new development, we're getting all this money from developers up front to pay off something that a ratepayer wouldn't notice the difference either way.
You're paying, collecting money for something we built to accommodate growth and development.
Right, but if it stopped, who pays for it?
Right there.
So development is necessary to all ratepayers to help pay off that debt. Just another way of looking at it.
I don't see that logic.
Without getting development fees to pay off Twin Oaks, the ratepayers we have now are gonna have to pay for it. Their rates have to go up at some point, or their extended amount of time, or
If
someone
you're
has
trying
to
to say
pay
there's
for
a
it.
benefit to development and growth in the district,
Certainly, a huge benefit to the ratepayers.
I don't see it.
Without growth, how do you pay back the money for Twin Oaks?
Current rates covered. If your question is, would the ratepayers be doing it, and we'd have to pay it back at some point? Yeah. The debt's gotta be paid.
So their rates would go up over time.
if I may,
No.
Okay.
No, the debt,
I'm missing.
the rates that we already charged Director Martin are adequate to fund our debt payments and have a surplus. They're already funding it. When we collect this money, that deficit goes down, and then the surplus that we have goes up. So if the rates were to stay the same today, if the Water Authority didn't increase their rates, we didn't have any increases, and we move forward, our rates are adequate to pay it. Would the existing ratepayer be paying it? Yeah. But we wouldn't be raising rates because we don't have growth. No.
Yes.
thank you, Chair. However, and I think this is where it gets, we need the development. To have an economy, we need some development. We all can agree with that. This isn't an issue of development versus not development, or it shouldn't be. That's not
No.
what we're into.
No.
But although our current rates would cover the debt until it's paid off, what we would lose, I take it, is we would lose our reserve, which we are counting on to compensate for the cost of the desalination and the other rises we're expecting. So if our reserve had to be totally set to pay for debt service, there wouldn't be any for rate stabilization. Is that?
It's not a simple question, it's looking long-term, because
But it's long-term,
there is an
but-
assumption, it's capital facility fees are separate than the rates, the capital facility fees have an assumption of growth, and it's not an easy question to answer right here, it'd be a long analysis to say what the impact is.
As elected officials, as board members, you have a reasonable duty, you have a duty to provide, reasonably provide service. And so that, part of that is reasonably to anticipate growth. So that's why you went out and built a big reservoir, so that so there'd be a reservoir there and water there, and the facilities down in Encina, they'd be in place, so you'd be able, so they could, when they came to the district and it was time for them to develop their property, that you'd had the adequate facilities to be there. So that was, you were foreseeing that and planning, orderly planning to do that. So in fairness to your question, Hal, it's, yes, you're right, if development's completely stopped today, but that's not, we have a duty to try to anticipate the development so we can accommodate it in the future, and so that we have these facilities in place. So it's kind of, you're on the horns of the dilemma in some respects, because you've got to plan for these facilities so that they're there, so when they come online, that they can utilize them. But you're right that if development completely stopped tomorrow, that you would be, because you had the foresight as district board members to build these facilities, that somebody's gonna have to pay for that debt service in order to pay it off. So, you know, what you say is true, but yet in fairness, it's something that we anticipate that would have to be done.
Oh,
Okay?
Yes.
And I agree with that, I'm just saying that without growth, you don't have new schools in San Marcos. You don't have new roads in San Marcos. You don't have new interchanges in San Marcos. Growth pays for that to happen, a lion's share of it, through all the fees that they pay. Without growth, you don't have Twin Oaks water. Because unless you anticipated it, there's no way you're gonna pay it with the small amount of people you had here.
Yeah, and
Right?
Director Martin, I don't think
Right.
growth is the intent of the conversation, nor do I think it's been the intent of my presentation. We know there's gonna be growth, whether it's fast, slow, starts or stops, that has not been the topic today. The topic has been fee deferral. Is the policy of fee deferral provide a benefit to this agency, one way or the other? Who does it provide a benefit to? And is it a policy that the board wants to look at? Is really what it comes down to. I'm not pro or anti-growth. What I looked at in this presentation was these are existing policy issues the district has. These are the potential risks, and I think I've been very clear. I see them as minor risks. I'm not trying to say there's some big thing here that if you do this, we're gonna come to an end tomorrow. But when we're looking at developing a policy, or the board's looking at doing it, what is the purpose of the policy and the intent? We are not pro-growth, anti-growth, we are a service provider. Hence the reason I said up front, water and sewer capacity is for a service provided. It is not an exactment as a condition of the privilege to develop. You got all been around long enough, development's a privilege, it's not a right. They set conditions and terms to develop. That's what all those fees are based on. These are fees based upon reasonable planning to provide service if growth happens. The issue of growth happening fast or slow is not really relevant to us. It really isn't. If
Very
it
good.
happens, great.
All right. I have two speakers here. Let's open it up to the public and hear what they have to say, and then we'll bring it back for our final discussion here at the board. Leon Hayden, thank you for waiting, sir.
It's a lot of good discussion. My name's Leon Hayden. I represent San Leo Hills Development Company. I was here last time, spoke on behalf of San Leo's to support the deferral of fees. Again, it seems like there's this layer after layer of issues that follow that. But some of the examples that were used about the savings, this is very recent, bond and fee letter from the district that for one of our builders on 13 units, the sewer and water capacity fees are $258,000. He's buying 63 units, he pays his full water capacity fees, for sewer and water capacity fees, that's $1.2 million. Those numbers seem a lot more compelling than just $1,000 saving over a brief period of time. Now, again, I don't have my interest rate table with me or anything, so it just, just from common sense. But at any rate, thanks for the.
Yes. A couple of questions here I see popping
Leon,
up. Director Evans?
I am so sorry, I was unable to hear what you just said, the numbers. I don't know if our mic is not working or.
I'm probably not speaking into it.
But you
so-
would repeat those for me.
Sure,
Gee,
this
I'm
is
sorry.
one of our builders that's buying 63 lots at San Leo Hills.
63 lots.
63 lots, single-family homes, and just on one phase of that is 13 lots. He's paying $146,000 and change for water capacity fees and $111,000 on sewer capacity fees. That's $258,000 and change for 13 lots. He's buying, as I said, 63 lots. So that approximately $20,000 a lot is $1.2 million over the life of the project. And again, you're assuming that they take them down in phases, they sell, and they get reimbursed from sale of homes. It isn't a huge amount of interest he's paying on that, but he is paying upfront money, and the numbers seem a little more compelling than just the minor amounts of savings that he's losing on interest rates. So that was my point. And
I have a question. Did you have a question?
No, sir.
And the 63 unit lot, the building timeline, how long would it take to build that?
well, again, you assume at 4 to 6 months per per home or per phase of, over a period of, what, a year or more to do?
Well, that's where I was going with
Yeah.
it. How long
Yeah,
is
it
this?
gets spread, you're right, it
Yeah.
gets spread over a period.
So it's a year program, not for 6 months.
Well, no, to develop 63 lots, I'm saying he's probably gonna take down, if just one of these phases at a time of 13, approximately 13 to 16 units per phase, times 6 months, it's
Okay.
well over it.
Okay.
He's gonna.
All right, so
So, yeah, you're right,
13
it's
goes
spread
into
over.
63, 5 times,
Yeah.
4 times, and so it's a year, 4 months at a section.
Right.
Okay, very good. Yes.
And currently, all his fees, city fees are all due at the same time with water.
They are, school
All
fees,
different.
city fees.
What are those fees? Do you happen to know those?
You know,
roughly?
Hal, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
$3.42 per square foot. That's how much those school fees are.
Yeah, there you go.
And if I might, Mr. Hayden is correct, but again, that was the example I gave you, and I did indicate, I just picked one home.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's 10, but the cost per unit is still the same, whether there's 1 or 10. The amount of interest you save per unit's the same. We did use 6 months. I've got that from Ken here somewhere. Well, when I find it, I'll tell you what the fees are, Director Martin. We do have the school district fees and the San Marcos fees.
Yeah, I
did
think
get those.
it's $3.42 a square foot.
That sounds about
Yeah,
right for
something
the
like
different
that.
one. And then
Yeah.
the city had everything from
Okay.
storm drain fee, curb fee, street fee. There's a plethora of the city fees on what it comes down to, but I'll try to find it here for you.
I guess my question is gonna be a more worldly question. What ifs in my crystal ball? If all the agencies were to do the same thing with fees, it would be quite a savings, I would think, to the homeowners.
Well,
some point in time.
deferred.
Deferred.
And again, I'm not sure if that would be passed down to the homeowner, hopefully it would, but.
City fee is for a single family, city
You're funny,
fee.
Hal.
It includes circulation, 78, Highway 78, and PDS, which is the storm drain. I don't know what tech improvements are. Parks, habitat conservation, so if a single-family home is $17,000.
Yeah,
16,800, hold it.
1680.
16,570, excuse me.
I just paid
The
it.
water and sewers at 20,000, cities at 17. and school
No, water and
districts-
sewer would be about 14,800.
14.8.
So it was 140,
I use 15,000 per as an average, but it's
Yeah.
14,800.
Okay.
But it changes dramatically. Commercial, 186,000 an acre. And then they've office, business, light industrial, so they're all different. So your range is multifamily, 12,590 at the lowest. Commercial per acre, 186,000.
So the whole added up there is about $38,000.
I have to note that the fees in San Marcos are $58,000
We can't hear you, Jim.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Neil.
you.
Thank you,
this is
Leo.
more,
The fees in San Marcos, to build a house in San Marcos, with all of the fees you have to pay, school fees, which are $489, by the way, and their affordable housing fee, and all the things that go in the city, $58,000 a house, including your fees. 58,
Okay.
okay? And that's what
58,000
we
per
just
single
paid.
family?
That's for single family. Multifamily is about 52.
All right.
So, and
Thank you.
I didn't put it in a slip, but I would like to speak.
Okay. Would you get a slip, Jim, please, because they're going to want that for the record.
And just in case anybody's freaking out that we're going on to 6:30, we didn't reset the clock.
You did, thank you.
It's 5:19.
The next public speaker, Michael McSweeney, please.
Mr. Chairman, would I have permission to plug in PowerPoint for you?
Yeah, I
Sure,
think so.
why
If you
I
got-
think it's easier to look at pictures than it is.
Why don't you, Diane, is it easier for you to pull it up?
Yes, it won't show on the screen.
Thank you, Mike.
How long is the
Sorry, I spoke before.
How long is this going to be, Mr. McSweeney?
6 minutes, 7 minutes?
Okay. Thank you.
Is it the only file on this, right? Is it the only file?
Is there a time constraint that I'm aware of?
There should be.
I said I'm unaware of.
I don't know, do we have a policy on time constraints, just for the records, or?
We don't have, it's the chair's discretion,
Okay.
unless we have a written
Well,
policy, which we don't have.
6 or 7 minutes, Mr. McSweeney should
Thank
get you through, and I'm a former Toastmaster, so I'm gonna be watching the clock.
Okay, there's our title page, we can skip to the next one. Do I do it, or do you do it?
The remote still up there?
Yes. Which one do I hit?
Oh,
No, did I take it with me, or is it up there?
There you go, and just keep.
Okay, so your current policy, I think, Director, your general manager went through it. Originally, you used to collect your fees at MAP. You now changed their policy, I believe, in 2010 to collect them at building permit issuance. Your existing policy mirrors most cities around you. I handed out to you in your packet there, part of the Mitigation Fee Act, which is 66007. I think you showed 66013.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't wanna get in
I
a
know.
legal argument with him, but
I-
6607, this is a very confusing area, but with all due respect, it doesn't apply, this statute that he's citing here. It just doesn't apply to us, okay?
Not being a lawyer and not playing one on TV, I don't want to get into it.
I'm not, and I mean that, with
So,
all
be
respect,
that-
man,
be
it is
that as it
confusing.
Who said that?
Be that as it may, if you decided to bring forward a policy for adoption, I would bring an attorney with me that would be able to advocate on what we feel it is. I would disagree with Director, or General Manager Lamb is, as far as his calculations go. The number 19,480, if you took the number that you just gave us and divided it by 13, that's within a couple $100. I think when you showed $15,000, that's without the County Water Authority's 4,000 plus fee. But the check we write to you for this would be this. Now, from what I've heard from the members that pay dues to belong to our association, nobody is paying 3.5% in construction lending. I've been told it's in the 9 to 15% range, so I picked 12%. So if you follow it through, there's your charge times 12% simple interest. A yearly, you take half of that for 6 months, it's $1,100. And then when you look at this, remember, this cost is passed on. So therefore, the person that buys the house is financing it, and typically over a 30-year period, they're gonna pay $3,500 in excess interest. We ask, is this reasonable or necessary? It's the same calculation with the 10% interest rate. And that's just for illustration. So why do we feel the policy needs to be changed? Remember, development is done on borrowed money, and it's expensive. It's much more expensive than what you pay to finance your home. The current system is a prepayment system. Other jurisdictions, and your director pointed it out, the study that we gave you was a snapshot in time. So imagine you taking your family, your entire extended family, a picture of it. 2 years later, perhaps a couple of your relatives have died, perhaps a couple of relatives were born. The picture is different. So yes, that document that I gave you, I believe, was a year and a half old. There are other water and sewer districts that do this. In your packet is the Orange County Sanitation District. They do defer their developer impact capacity fees. The Eastern and Western Municipal Districts and Riverside, the water agencies, when a builder builds, they put in all the infrastructure, they do what's called a jumper, and then when they sell the house, they go and install the meter, they take the jumper, and that's when all the capacity fees are due. So in effect, they don't have a fee deferral system. They basically have, you pay your fees right before somebody moves in, and that's when they set the meter. And remember, not all the developers, there's not gonna be a land rush to do this. It's another tool in the toolbox. If a developer chooses it's in their best interest, they may ask to defer the fees. We talked about some of the arguments against the policy today. there's a tremendous worry that somehow somebody will not pay the fees. And Director Ferguson, I apologize for raising my hand to interject. Before I took this job, I was a contractor. As a contractor, or as the contractors that he sells the lots to, there are different spots as we build that we call for permission to have the building inspector come out.
I used to develop property.
Okay.
You
So
don't
then
have to educate me, educate
Okay.
them.
All right, so, no disrespect, ma'am, but it's very simple to put another box in the daisy chain that when I call to request for final inspection, the city can tell me, well, we can't give that to you because you haven't paid your fees to the water and sewer district. Therefore, I can't even get final inspection. So when we ask for final inspection, ideally what we're asking for is whatever works best for my industry and my members and you as a board. I think the smartest thing is to put the box right before the request for final inspection. Will it cost the district money? I don't think so. It's just the amount of interest you could earn at 1%. Do we need the fees now to pay for ongoing projects? And I remember when we were here a little over a year ago, part of that capacity study and those fees is the district goes out and borrows money when it's time to build the big project. And I think what you've got here, as Tom said, is you've got a deficit. And part of the reason we're coming forward with this is we're hoping that there are some projects that are kind of at a tipping point. You know, can we get them to go forward? Maybe this is what it takes. And what, quite frankly, I think the district needs is more projects to come forward so that you've got more developer fee income. So let's talk about how we protect the district. We talked about a set-aside letter. We talked about the lien filed against the property. Dennis pointed out that Pardee did this in City of San Diego, McMillan did it in Santee. Quite frankly, a lien filed against the property, let's assume for the sake of discussion the ball gets dropped at the city or at the county or even at the district here. The title insurer, before they can pass clear title and get the loan and funded and everybody moves in, if the title insurer doesn't pick it up, the title insurer is on the line to pay the fees. There really is no downside, and again, if you decide to bring a policy forward for adoption, I'll bring you a title and escrow expert to explain to you and walk you through how you can be protected. A certificate of occupancy typically comes after final inspection, which is permission for somebody to actually move into the house and typically for utilities to be connected. So our conclusions, we feel the intent of state law is clear, that the impact is somebody living in the house. The impact fee should be paid as close to that as possible. Other water and sewer districts adjacent to our county have these policies. A couple cities that operate their sewer districts have this. We think it unnecessarily increases development costs, and it might help push projects forward. So what we're asking, quite frankly, is the district to bring forward a fee deferral policy containing the following. Payment at final inspection, meaning we're going to pay before we can get our final inspection. A simple, user-friendly policy. Let's keep it simple and easy to understand for both parties involved. We'd like to work with you to draft it, to make sure it's going to work for our members and it's going to work for you. And we'd like to put it in place for 2 years. It gives you time then at the end of 2 years to look at it, assess it. It gives us time to test drive it. And if it works, then we could continue doing it. If it doesn't, then we scrap it or go to plan B. But I would respectfully request that this is something that is very important to the members of my trade association. Whether it's $250 a house, whether it's $1,500 a house. The end of the day is the market right now is very fluid. We still have approximately 30% unemployment, and I think was that good enough?
And that was 8 minutes on the button.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Jim Simmons, sir.
Good evening. I apologize. I really wasn't going to talk, but there's a couple things that I just wanted to try to clarify before you guys deliberate. Before you guys go to deliberate.
Oh my God, that thing really does work, huh?
It's a little short, or I'm a little tall.
I was gonna recommend we
A
get
couple
a
things.
longer
Number one,
tube
this
there.
doesn't just apply to developers. This applies to public agencies as well. For instance, the school district has to buy sewer and water capacity from you guys. They spend taxpayer dollars, 6 to 8, the high school, a year and a half or 2 years ahead of when they're going to use the capacity. Nobody gets capacity unless they pay. It doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost your ratepayers anything if you're not providing service. So what happens is, just like SDG&E comes to the door and says, okay, we're gonna put the meter in, and they're not gonna do that until the city of San Marcos says that they're gonna give you occupancy. It's the same thing with you. So there are ways that this saves the taxpayer money. There are ways that it saves the building industry money. And what it does allow for is it's not a hard cost. Once you take out the interest, that leaves the flexibility in those pricings to change rents, to change prices of houses, to qualify people who might miss it by $2,000, and it gives them more flexibility. It gets more people in homes, and it provides some things. It isn't just this district. We're paying $60,000 in fees to build a house in San Marcos. We're trying to talk all the agencies into extending this. It turns out to be a fair amount of money. It could be $7,000 or $8,000 financed in a mortgage over a 30-year period. It turns out to be $20,000 is what it turns out to be over a 30-year period. So it is a fair amount of money, and we're asking for your cooperation. Hopefully we'll get it from other agencies, and it'll make a difference to what people pay for homes, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, Director Ferguson.
Tim,
Jane?
thank you very much, but are you going to ask the other entities to do the same
Yes,
thing with their fees?
we are in the process of doing that right now. We're meeting with the city.
The school district, everybody?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Why are you taking us on
Well, we're on,
first?
well, you guys brought it to the board first. We're trying to get it to the council in San Marcos here in the next few weeks, and we've initiated discussions with the school district as well. So it just happened that Mr. Hernandez brought it up before everybody else put it in front of a board, so you're first, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to close the public hearing portion, and now we're going to bring it back to the board for discussion as to what to do. Yes, Director Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been given an awful lot of information to try to absorb today, and I would like the board to consider tabling this until we've had a chance to chew on this a little bit and get some questions, lined up so we can ask them at a subsequent meeting. And I'd also like to find out what the other entities are that Jim spoke about that they're going to request deference of the fees. I don't feel comfortable being the first person in the water here, if you know what I mean. I don't want to break trail, so I'd like to find out what the other entities are, but I'd like to recommend, if it's okay with the board, I'd like to recommend a 30-day continuance.
I was going to suggest even further, because
Okay.
at the end of this, excuse me, at the end of this meeting, we're going to have to look at our calendars on our upcoming board meetings, because we've got some things that are going to take place. So absolutely,
I just leave
it's
it
going
on
to,
the
yeah,
table.
definitely going to not happen
I'd request
anytime
a
quickly.
consideration of a
Right,
continuance.
yes, we can do that, but I would like to continue the discussion so that, yes, the general manager, whoever you are over there.
I'm a director today, thank you. After Mr. McSweeney did his presentation, I think you had to see the similarity between what I showed and what he showed.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of dispute, whether it's 10% interest or 12, whether it's the total fee at the Water Authority or not. And as Leon indicated, whether it's one house or 10. I don't think you saw a lot of difference between the facts presented tonight. It's coming down to, again, what is the purpose and benefit of the program? So, again, like I said, what Mr. McSweeney put up there, I think we may have a legal interpretation over which section governs us, but I think that's for a different issue. So I don't think you see again, the silver bullet that points out right or wrong on this process. I think what you see is whether or not it's something the district just chooses to pursue and what the reason behind it is.
Yes. Director Podel.
Well, what Director Ferguson was suggesting, to me, it's just taking up more staff time, but, if that's the direction of the board, then so be it. But, I see it, first of all, I don't like being compared to cities, because they have a conflict of interest as far as what we have. Our interest to our ratepayers has to do with providing basic services, sewer and water, at the best price. And that's all it is. It has nothing to do with land use. It has nothing to do with helping out developers or anything of that nature. You can go down this list here, which is pretty simple. Let's say, what is the goal of the policy of the district, and what is our goal? It has nothing to do about development. And I think discussion has gone on about how we pay. Is development critical to the district? You know, I don't think so. I don't think that my obligation to the people who voted me in has anything to do with, I've never once had a ratepayer come up and say, Jim, I think you ought to help out the developers. What I see here is really, it's not about how much the fees are. It's somebody coming up to me and say, Jim, I know we owe you some money, but how about if I pay you in 5 months? And I'm not gonna pay you any interest, but let me pay you in 5 months. So, and I say, well, the money's due now. So why would I do that? Why would I do that? Because what we have now, our policy is a good policy as far as to the ratepayer and to the district. We have no risk. It's been what we've always done. People come in and say, we'd like to do this. We say, fine, this is how much it's gonna cost you. You get your money, bam, we're done. We don't have anything else to look at. So, you know, my question would be, why would we want to change a policy that works for us right now? And essentially, we are putting more risk, whatever it might be. The guarantees could all be there, but we're saying the money that we would have gotten interest on, that would have helped pay our debt service, we're not gonna get for another 5 months or so. So we're actually gonna lose a little bit of money on that. Why would we do that? Is there a ratepayer out there who would agree to us kind of transferring the risk? Whatever risk, how big it is, we're actually transferring risk. Anyway, that's all I got.
Anything from this, Director Martin?
Yeah, I've never had the honor or the privilege of being a staffer, so I don't understand things from a staffer's way of looking at things. I have had the privilege of serving on a few different boards. The purpose and intent, I think, of most governmental or quasi-governmental, if you don't want to be called that, agencies, is to look out for the people it serves. In our case, it's ratepayers. I look at bigger pictures. I look at economic stimulus. I look at bigger picture things. But economic stimulus doesn't happen because President Obama says it's going to happen. It takes all the smaller governmental agencies to work together to try to make that happen. And I don't see transferring risk. I don't take that lightly. If there's a risk involved, and like Director Ferguson, I too have been on a board where we've had homeowners show up very upset because they couldn't get their certificate of occupancies from the city, and that was Ryland Homes when they first started building the houses out on the golf course. The city didn't issue COs because certain things weren't done by the developer, and they showed up at a council meeting. I certainly understand both sides, but then again, I also understand that I wouldn't go out and buy a car today and pay for it and have them tell me I couldn't pick it up for 3 or 4 months. Or I wouldn't go out and get a mortgage today and say, well, I have the mortgage, but I can't move into the house for 5 or 6 months. I don't know. I'm looking at it both ways, and I think Director Ferguson, I think that was a great suggestion for us to think about it and stew over it for 30 days. So I'm definitely going to second your motion on that.
Well, no, I'm with you, he's.
Yeah, I'm
he
gonna
wants-
make sure that
Okay.
we get this
He wants to
deferred.
negotiate the
Yeah,
amount of
yeah,
time.
exactly.
That's fine. But I think 30 days, because there are a lot of sides to this, and a lot of different ways of looking at it.
And-
Well, oh, you're gonna have.
I just wanted to, if we're gonna table it, can we give a little bit of direction at all?
Yes, by all means.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I agree, this is a very complex issue. It seems like it would be a simple answer. There's validity to both sides of it. I totally agree that we're going to delay it. I think we need to consider it, but I would like to see if there's a possibility in that we could determine what amount of interest we are foregoing if we were to defer something, just to be sure we know what we're doing. I'd like to see what the harm would be to the district. I'm not convinced that I can see the benefit to the district, but sometimes it's not do you benefit, it's do you avoid harm. And in this sense, I agree that although we can't make land use issues, has a great impact on our district, and I agree that we all need to work on this locally. So I feel like I don't want to close my mind that I don't have to address anything but water, because I don't think it's that simple. And if I'd like to know what risk I'm really putting them at, because I can't decide otherwise.
Let me take a moment here, because we certainly are going to defer this for more than 30, and it's probably going to be more like 60 or 90, because we have some date conflicts in November and in December. So this is not going to be coming back until after the first of the year that I am going to ask anyway. But let me take a bit of a different direction here, because, and thank God I did this, because now I don't have to worry about someone considering that this is my conflict. But I'm building a little unit on my property, 850 square foot unit. The fees that I'm paying, $32,822 before I can set a shovel into the ground. And I'm using no power, no water, no sewer, no electric, no gas, nothing. I already got children who have gone through schools, I'm paying those fees, and I'm happy to pay them because that's the law of the land. But $32,000, this whole unit is only going to cost $60,000. So I was appalled when I got that number, but that's what it was, so I paid it. In protest, I might add, because I'm asking the city that they're crazy. But I paid it, and it would have been much more beneficial to me personally had I been able to defer that to the end. But the other thing is, I am taking a different tact, and respectfully to Mr. Podol, Director Podol, who I've known for 30 plus years, we in fact are a member of this community. This agency is the lifeblood of this community. We, quite frankly, you can throw the city over the bridge. Without us, this city stops, this community stops. The people that are involved in our district, the other two, Carlsbad and Encinitas, a little bit of Vista, would stop without this agency. So we are a major force within this community, and I think what we have to do is ensure that our ratepayers are protected. Absolutely bottom line, and that we are acknowledge that we are part of this community. So the time frame to look at this further is absolute. I would like to get this information about the amount of interest, but also I want to, because believe me, there are on this list of which was it here? The payment vehicles. I mean, I would throw almost all of them out, because I don't want to have this district, because I have been through bond processes and had to collect bonds, and I know Ken has as well, and that is an obscene, long-term delay that I would not put this district at a moment's notice. I want to ensure that whatever vehicle we want to discuss, when and if we want to discuss it, is instantaneously when we, the district, ask for it. So when this comes back for further discussion, would you please provide me whatever that is, so that I can tick off some of these other lien agreements and the instruments of.
We'll just go back and refine what is more
Perfect.
secure and
Thank
what's
you
not
very
secure.
much. I think that was all the ballyhoo I wanted to put forward here, and I think we have a time frame, and I think we have a bit of direction, and we can bring this back to us after the first of the year. That'll give you enough time?
Yeah, the interest, Director Evans, will, again, what we can give you is a range.
I understand.
Yeah, so I can give you the best we've got. As the developers' rates probably change, so do ours. So, I mean, that's a moving target. We'll give you some information on that. That's relatively easy to do. With respect to the security forms, we can go back and see what is, lack of better terms, bulletproof.
Uh-huh.
To determine.
Perfect.
And again, as I did point out, between what Mr. McSweeney presented and what I presented, Not a lot of difference in between the two. It just is coming down to when the board gets back together to talk about it, what's the purpose behind it? And if that's the way it moves forward, at least then we know how to develop a policy. So all I'll be bringing back will be some interest rate information, and I'll get that out to you sooner than January. You'll
Okay.
probably have that next week,
Okay.
just to give you some information on that, and then I'll have the council investigate the securities.
Very good. Director Person?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's all right with the board, I would like you to also check with all the other entities that are involved in this huge fee, $32,000 fee, and find out if they're going to be thinking about deferring fees.
That would be the two that Mr. McSweeney indicated, which would be the school district, no, or maybe Jim did it.
School district.
School district and the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever you.
I'll talk to
those are the
I'll
two
talk to
big ones you
Jack.
have.
Yeah, those are the two. And Director Ferguson, I know you weren't able to attend our, no fault of your own, the meeting we had with the city, but even the city has acknowledged that they are looking at that as well. So, but getting absolute information, Dennis, would be essential.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yes. Good. Okay,
You sure not put it out 6 months? I'm just saying, why can't we do it sooner?
what's that?
That's the, get most of the information to us next week, why couldn't we do it in 30 days?
Because on the 20th, we're gonna have, we may not have a meeting, I'm gonna discuss that when we get to
Oh, okay,
this.
I've got my calendar.
Yeah,
so-
good. And then we have a conflict in December, so I think we'll proceed without delay, but we want to make sure that we have a full board when we do this, so that everybody's oar is in the water.
The 20th of December is a Friday.
Let's move on to just that topic, which is,
November
The
20.
18th is our meeting in December.
No, go to November. for-
Yes.
Oh, November?
November
Yeah,
20th.
November
Start
20th.
with November?
I think, rather than wait till the last minute, Dennis, can we, two of our board members are going to be gone, and potentially I'm going to be gone, which we then would not have a quorum. So if we can move that to a different day, and we know that Thanksgiving is the following week, but sometime between the 18th and the 29th.
The 27th is the day before Thanksgiving. Do you-
Yes.
We won't be off that day.
No, I mean, that would be a good day to move it to. The 27th work for everybody?
Fine by me?
Fine by me?
Any conflicts, Dan? Okay.
Okay, so
That's the day before Thanksgiving.
day before Thanksgiving, November 27th, 11/27. Now,
I'm sure Dennis will be turkey.
What's the next one?
what's the next one, Dennis? We have a conflict, is that the 4th? We have a?
Okay, yeah, December.
Oh, we
Hal,
love turkeys.
if I cook the turkey, it's gonna be slicing out of a package.
Oh, same as me,
Yeah,
same way I do.
yeah, I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
my culinary skills, I'm held on a barbecue and breakfast. Beyond that, in December, the first board meeting in December on the 4th, we're pretty sure we will not have a quorum because it's the Aqua Conference in San Diego.
Yes.
So we know we will not be able to accomplish that week. So if the board would like to reconsider picking a date for the 4th?
Well, what about the 11th? Was that the next Wednesday? And it doesn't have to be Wednesday again, just following suit.
The only thing I show as a conflict, and that's in the morning, is you two have an
Right.
E-Word board meeting, but that's in the
In the
morning.
morning time.
Okay, the 11th then?
Is that the consensus with everyone?
So it would be
Actually, the
then-
9th works out better for me, Monday, that's,
Well, Monday the 9th?
The 9th, I've got an all-day commitment on the 9th,
Okay.
sorry.
can we
But
do
could
it
we
on
do it the 11th?
10th?
The 11th?
Whatever the board wants.
Well,
Do it
we have, what's, sorry, I can't hear.
10th?
The 10th?
Now, I've got another commitment that day. Christmas
busy
is,
girl.
you know, Christmas is,
12th?
12th? I'm good for the 12th.
4 o'clock?
Is everybody good for the 12th?
Yeah, 4 o'clock?
I'm
4
good.
o'clock,
Okay,
the
and that will,
12th.
and that 12th will also be the date of the board reorganization, annual reorganization.
Okay, yeah, board reorganization on the 12th. So it will be this item for sure and board reorganization as well.
Okay,
All right.
hold on. You-
Upset.
You just said this item for sure. What do
Oh.
you mean, this item?
Oh, Well, would you have enough time to do the research between now and the 12th?
Sure.
To bring this back?
Sure.
Okay, well then let's bring it back on the 12th. That's more than 30 days, and less than
The interest
60.
risk is gonna be a spreadsheet, it's gonna be go
Yeah,
down this line, go
perfect,
down this line, and
perfect.
there's a
Well, then
loss.
let's put that on the agenda.
The research for the vehicles, I'll have Jeff be working on that. I've already getting hold of Jack at the city, and I'm not sure who to speak to at the school district, but I can probably
Okay.
get a point of contact from Jim.
All right.
Well, could,
Yes,
could we leave it, if you can't get us any definitive information from the districts, from either San Marcos or the school district, could you, defer that? Well, we're gonna have to have a meeting anyway.
I'm pretty sure by the 27th, I'll have a good answer for you if I've got any
The
conflicts. And then
27th
of November.
of November. Okay.
so having.
So I'll know by then if there's
Yeah.
any issues.
Okay, fine. All right.
Isn't Kevin Holt still a guy at the district? You said you didn't know who to get a hold of.
Actually, I'm not sure of who would be the point. Jim, would that be?
It would be the director of facilities.
Yeah.
Kari Knowles.
That's what I was wondering if the new.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll hook you up.
Okay.
Okay, could I ask a repeat now of what these dates were? We've got,
11/27,
wait, today's the 6th of November, so the next one will be
11/27,
the 27th.
and the next one will be 12/4. Excuse me, 12/12.
Yeah.
December 12th at 4 PM.
Yes.
Correct. We still have the
Good.
19th.
Mr. Podel, Director Podel?
Did, it's not a big heartburn, but on the 27th of November, there's usually a lot going on. And is there any chance we could have it a day or two earlier? Or did you look at your calendar, the 25th and 26th?
Hold
Fine
on.
with me.
Well, 25th,
I'm looking
yeah.
at November.
The 25th of November, yeah, but not the 26th. 25th is a Monday, that'll be at 4 o'clock on a Monday.
You guys?
I would like that better, actually.
I think that would probably be
Yeah,
better for
Director
everybody.
Pope's right.
The 26th is a Tuesday of November.
You're
No,
talking
the
25th.
25th,
I'm saying
Monday?
the
Oh, yeah,
Monday.
25th is Monday.
Yeah.
But you would
That's what-
prefer that, or,
Yeah.
Yes.
That would work better for me.
okay, does that work for you?
Right.
That works for all of us then.
Okay.
How
so
about
it's the-
staff?
So it's the 25th.
Will you be here?
Oh, good, no turkey.
Okay,
I'll be in Cabo, but I'll come back for the.
yeah. Come back. It's cheaper to come back then.
I have one question, I didn't get. Who would be your counterpoint at the school district, to this director?
Should be the superintendent. huh?
Directors of Facilities and Planning. So he's the one who brings all that to the board.
Oh, okay.
So, used to be Kathy Tanner's
Yeah.
now. it's
Yeah, I knew
now
Kathy.
Kari Knowles.
Okay.
11/25 and 12/12.
Okay.
Okay, now I jumped over reports because I'm not sure we need to. We're gonna wait till the next, till Wednesday.
And then here.
We only have one meeting in December.
Well, you can make the decision at the meeting of the 12th whether or not you want to have the normally scheduled one. That's
On the
following,
19th, yeah.
on the 19th.
Yeah.
We've always kept that date scheduled, but the board's made the decision.
We can,
Put it this way, there's not a whole lot going on the week
Right.
between
Yeah,
Christmas and
exactly.
New Year's or the week right before. So I think at the 12th, Director Evans, you can make the choice whether or not to even have any agenda items.
Okay.
All right. Any further business, any further discussion? Seeing none, adjourned.